Hello and welcome. I'm Juno, intimacy provider and educator, here to share some of my musings with you from my time working in the industry. My hope is to support those who are new to doing this work and those who are curious about joining. Selling intimacy, one of the oldest professions in our world, yet combining the two taboo topics of intimacy and money, it is far from being one of the most accepted. What does it look like from a legal sense to be an intimacy provider right now? And what are we fighting for? What do we want to achieve? I think it's really important for intimacy providers and our allies to understand the current laws and where we want to move towards. Many people assume that legalization is the best option. Myself and many other advocates have a different idea. Selling intimacy. Should it be legal? This work is illegal or legal? It's a little confusing. The laws around selling intimacy greatly vary depending on the country that you live in. In many countries, it is illegal. This work is criminalized, therefore, if you do it, you are committing a crime. Regulation system number 1, criminalization. In this context, everybody engaging in the industry, whether providers, clients, or third parties, are all committing a crime if they do this work or support it in some way. Most countries follow this model with varying penalties depending on where you are. Personally, I'm based in Canada, and we follow a different semi-illegal, semi-legal model. What's with the Swedes? The second regulatory model that we'll talk about is known as the Nordic model. This model is kind of a mix of legalization and criminalization. It was first introduced in Sweden, hence the name. Other countries that follow this hybrid model include Norway, Iceland, France, most recently Israel, and my home, Canada. Our government rolled this out after the Canada versus Bedford case, with the Supreme Court putting it into place in 2014. It was marketed to those who are supportive of the industry but not well informed, tricking people into thinking it's a progressive act. Under this model, service providers are legally allowed to sell their services. Awesome! Almost. With all the restrictions in place around what the reality of selling these services actually looks like, it's in reality trying to stop it from happening. Under the Nordic model, selling services is legal. That's super cool, until you realize that everything involved that's necessary to make selling these services take place is still illegal. This form of regulation sees the industry as inherently exploitative, with workers as victims and clients as criminals who are exploiting us. It is, in reality, seeking to eradicate the industry. One of the regulations that makes it unrealistic is nobody can help you with your business. You can sell, but if you want another person to help you enhance your income or your safety, that's not allowed. You have to work alone, otherwise it's perceived that you're being exploited. Want a driver who doubles as security waiting outside your bookings? Illegal. Want an admin assistant who helps you screen clients and checks in with you after bookings for making sure you're okay? Illegal. Want to work with another provider so you can not only share space costs but also enhance each other's well-being? Illegal. The law in Canada even says living with an intimacy provider, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, is presumed to be proof of such a benefit, benefiting off the exploitation of service providers. AKA, if you have a partner in your personal life who you're living with and you're contributing to the rent, they're exploiting you, apparently. Another component to these regulations that, yes, while you're allowed to sell, makes it impossible to do so, is that you are legally not allowed to advertise. If you were to stumble upon someone who you intuitively know wants to purchase your services, yeah, you can sell. Let me know how your business runs under that model. For advertising, the Canadian laws state everyone who knowingly advertises the sale of intimate services is liable to imprisonment. Yes, that's what it says, imprisonment. Now, I know a lot of workers who advertise, myself included, and I've never heard of anybody being reprimanded for doing this, but still, technically, we are committing a federal level crime for advertising our services that we're legally allowed to provide. Sorry, what? The last piece of regulation that makes this work legal but pretty much illegal is that clients can't purchase your services. You can sell, but clients can't buy. Yes, you heard that right. You can sell your services, but if someone purchases them, they are committing a high-level federal crime. In Canada, obtaining intimate services for consideration is punishable by imprisonment and fine. So you can sell it, but they can't buy it. That makes so much sense. With the purchasing of it criminalized and potentially leading to imprisonment, in terms of safety, this work might as well be illegal. Even if what you're doing is allowed, if on the client's end they can be reprimanded so heavily for their actions, they're going to be a lot more concerned with keeping their identity safe than if they were allowed to do this freely. This means that far less people, kind of understandably, are going to be willing to screen, which means you have less insurance that they're not going to be a harmful person. If the good clients are refusing to screen and this becomes the norm, then the not so good clients are able to slip through much more unnoticed. This decrease in our ability to screen clients increases our risk of violence. According to Canada's National Intimacy Provider Law Reform Advocacy Group, linked in the show notes below, the criminalization of the intimacy industry results in a constant police presence, social and racial profiling, harassment, surveillance, arrest, and detention, all of which contribute to isolation and vulnerability to violence. The Nordic model, also known as the abolitionist model, which we follow in Canada, makes our work semi-legal but mainly still illegal. It's a sly government move to look like we're being progressive when in reality we're still treating the industry as if the workers in it are a vulnerable group who's being exploited without us even realizing it. As if we are immoral, needing to be saved from our circumstances without our consent for our own personal safety and the safety of our communities. The system gives face value to the industry while in reality trying to eradicate it. Social reprimands of criminalization. All of these laws regulating and punishing people for working as an intimacy provider, it increases not only our risk of physical violence, but also damages our potential for our social well-being as well. With this profession being regulated under criminal law versus municipal bylaws, public health, associations, it's not seen as real work, it's treated as a crime. Something that is morally unjust, that people should be ashamed of for participating in. I love what I do. I truly do. But like any job, there's parts of it that I don't like. And do you know what one of the biggest ones is? Being in love with my job and not being able to share that. Yes, I personally am coming out more and more. I'm here with you talking about the industry and my work within it. And that really warms my heart. Thank you for being here. But what about when I'm applying for a place to live? And while I can afford the rent, my employment makes me look risky. Will I still get housing? Or if I want to seek another job? And while I've gained a lot of skills being an entrepreneur, I have to make the hard choice of either admitting what I do and maybe being very judged for that, or having a big gap on my resume. Will I still be able to find employment? Or when I'm having casual conversation with somebody that I just met and they ask what I do for work, can I tell them about my job, or does that put me in potential harm? Again, yes, I am so grateful to be out to the majority of people in my life and have very few experiences of discrimination. I will note this is particularly enhanced by my social privileges, being a white cisgender woman. But I have definitely had my fair share of, at best, awkward moments, and do really wish that I had a job I could share with whomever I want without fear of judgment or differential treatment. Still, I'm a lucky one. If you're working in the industry and you're not able to share this with the people who are close to you in your life, my heart truly does go out to you. This work isn't for everyone, particularly if it could put you in danger to disclose this. It might not be the best path for you. Danger doesn't just mean physical. Social stigma and discrimination can really wear on our mental and emotional well-being, even our physical, and it's particularly difficult to navigate when our support people aren't able to support us. I know that not everybody does this work because they genuinely love it. I know that for a lot of people, it's about survival. But if it's genuinely not good for you, if you're putting yourself at increased risk for harm, whether physical or social, I do greatly hope that you can find another way to make money. The really scary side of criminalization. A huge danger about this regulatory system is that by pushing the whole industry underground, making it this secretive world, those who are in it and need help are more easily hidden. If a client sees a provider and they suspect they're not actually a provider, but someone who's being forced into the industry, do you think they're going to go tell the authorities about this? Some might, perhaps, and I applaud those brave humans. Others likely won't, because they would have to admit to a potentially imprisonment-worthy crime to say how they found this information. Many people conflate intimacy providing to trafficking. Those people, my friends, are so misinformed. So misinformed. I am choosing to do this line of work on my own free will. I am fully making the choice to do this work. I do this by choice because it allows me to live a life that I love. Check out my first episode on why I love the industry, as well as some cons, because let's be real, no work is perfect. While I know this is not the field for everyone, it is the field for me. I love it. I am choosing to do it. I am working. I am paid for my services. This is my job. This is work. This is real work. If someone is being trafficked in the industry, if they're being forced to do this against their will with no material or otherwise benefits to themselves, they are not working. They're being trafficked. Let me make this so very clear. If somebody is selling intimate services, but they're doing so without their consent, they are not an intimacy provider. They are a victim of trafficking. Intimacy providers are working in the industry. Trafficking victims are being trafficked within the industry. If the intimacy industry is permitted, us workers are able to work in ways that are safer and with more respect and dignity. Not only that, but it makes it harder to hide those who are being trafficked. So we want it to be legal then? Don't get your sandwich boards all written up just yet. Let's dig into this a little. The next form of regulation we'll talk about is legalization. In this context, everybody engaged in the industry, providers, clients, third parties, are legally allowed to do this work or support it, but it is very heavily regulated. Special laws about the industry are created, providing a context in which people can work legally, But it also creates a big two-tiered system in which many people have to continue to work illegally. In this scenario, the most marginalized workers are still forced to work illegally and increases their risk of exploitation. Some countries in which this work is legal include Germany, Bolivia, parts of Australia, Peru, Ecuador, and a handful more. This model involves heavy surveillance, which is not only unnecessary, but a big waste of community resources. It supports corruption within the industry and really reduces individual workers' access to safety resources. With heavy regulation, this two-tiered system favors big business brothels to make a bunch of money. That was kind of hard to say, big business brothels. But it also decreases the bargaining power of the individual workers. It continues to push independent workers who often can't afford the expensive licensing fees to work unprotected at risk of violence. It also does not impact trafficking rates, given that this hidden, secretive market still exists. Legalization is a very impractical and exclusionary system. The reality is that it gives opportunities for big businesses to form, profiting off the work of intimacy providers, while the individuals themselves often experience new challenges and risks of exploitation. So, what should we be fighting for? We are fighting for this work to be seen as real work. What other profession is regulated by the Federal Criminal Code? Answer: none. So rather than treating the industry as a crime, whether being legalized or criminalized, we want it to be removed from this system of regulation. We want it to be decriminalized. So the last form of regulation I'll talk about is decriminalization. In this context, the industry ceases to be seen as a criminal offense. The only countries that have yet to do this are New Zealand and some states in Australia. Again, referencing the Canadian advocacy group Fighting for Law Reform, removing intimacy work-specific criminal provisions is a most urgent and effective step to protect, respect, and fulfill the human rights of intimacy workers. Doctors, teachers, janitors, nurses, these professions are regulated by municipal bylaws, public health, professional associations, etc. We're not saying the intimacy industry should be a free-for-all. We're saying that this should be treated as legitimate work and regulated as such. By using a framework that engages provincial legislation, public health, occupational health and safety, employment laws, intimacy providers can be empowered to screen their clients, seek social and health resources as necessary, and also get justice in the case of employment or sexual exploitation. Unlike legalization, decriminalization will help to support the most marginalized of workers, such as immigrants, people working on the street, youth, and those living with addictions, amongst others. Whereas legalization supports those who already have a lot of privilege, decriminalization can increase access to support, safety, and respect for everybody. Workers and allies can fight for change. If you're in Canada and you want to learn more about the current laws and how we can change them, I really urge you to look into the organization CASWLR, linked in show notes. This national advocacy group was initiated to create a unified and cohesive response to law reform and to strengthen the capacity of our communities to engage with legislative processes that impact our lives. They have conducted some really great research and have a plethora of resources. Let's not let all this great knowledge sit dusty on a shelf somewhere. Whether you're a part of the industry or an ally, knowledge is power, and fighting for decriminalization is fighting for our inclusion, our rights, and our safety. Thank you for listening to Juno's Musings. If you would like a more concise version of this episode, you can read my blog post found on my website, linked in the show notes below. Whether you're new to the industry or curious about joining, I hope you found a few useful nuggets to support you on your journey. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this content.